Me, myself, and Earl. The cold spot hit Elizabeth Mitchell the moment she crossed the threshold of apartment 4B. She blamed it on the ancient AC unit rattling in the window, but deep down, something felt wrong about that patch of frigid air. It followed her as she carried boxes from the hallway into her new bedroom, like an unwelcome shadow that refused to be shaken. "Just nerves," she muttered, setting down the last box marked bedroom. The apartment was a steal for downtown, too good to pass up, even if the 1950s building had seen better days. The real estate agent's nervous energy during the showing should have been her first warning. The second warning came that night. Elizabeth jolted awake at 3 a.m. to the overwhelming stench of decay. Not the musty smell of old buildings, but the sickly sweet odor of rotting meat. She fumbled for the bedside lamp, gagging. The smell vanished the instant light flooded the room. That's when she heard it, a low, gravelly chuckle from the darkest corner, like someone who'd smoked 3 packs a day for decades. "Elizabeth?" The voice scraped against her ears. "Pretty Elizabeth." She spun toward the sound, heart pounding. Nothing but shadows. Yet she could have sworn one of them moved, shifting like smoke against the wall. Sleep didn't come again that night. The dream started 3 days later. Elizabeth was standing in her apartment, but everything was wrong. The walls dripped with something dark and viscous. A man sat in her favorite reading chair, his face hidden in shadow. All she could see were his hands, scarred, yellowed with nicotine, drumming against the armrest. "Gonna show you things, Elizabeth," he rasped. "Gonna show you what I did to them." She woke up screaming. The dreams drove her to research. The local library's newspaper archives told the story in bold headlines from 1956. Bradford Heights butcher claims 3 more. Earl Madden, a resident of the newly built Bradford Heights apartments, had murdered his wife and 2 young daughters. The article described scenes too grotesque to be real, but the crime scene photos didn't lie. Elizabeth's hands shook as she read. Earl had lived in 4B, her apartment. The cold spot followed her home that day, stronger than ever. As she fumbled with her keys, a voice whispered close enough that putrid breath touched her neck. "Welcome home, pretty Elizabeth. Just like my Catherine, you are. Same golden hair, same green eyes." A pause. "Same screams, I bet." She dropped her keys, spun around. The hallway was empty, but the wall beside her bore a handprint of something dark and wet. When she blinked, it was gone. The blackouts began in week 2. Elizabeth would find herself in strange places, standing in the building's basement storage room, hovering in the stairwell, once even perched on the roof's edge at midnight. Her phone showed photos she didn't remember taking. Long exposure shots of empty rooms, dark corners, strange angles of her own face distorted in shadow. Her fiancé, Mark, noticed the changes first. "You were talking to someone," he said over dinner. "Last night in the bedroom, having a whole conversation." Elizabeth's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "I was asleep." "No, Liz, you were standing in the corner, speaking in this weird, deep voice. When I touched your shoulder, you turned around and—" He swallowed hard. "Your eyes were different. Wrong." She didn't remember any of it. Work became impossible. During a crucial client presentation, Elizabeth felt the familiar cold creep up her spine. Her voice changed mid-sentence, dropping to a gravelly growl. She told the client exactly what she thought of their frickin' stupid ideas and described in vivid detail what their entrails might look like. HR put her on immediate leave. Late one night, Elizabeth woke to find herself surrounded by yellowed newspaper clippings. They covered her bed, the floor, even stuck to the walls. All about Earl. All about the murders, but there was more. Articles from 1957. Bradford Heights claims another. Young woman recreates butcher's crimes. 1968. Copycat killer or something more? Third murder spree mirrors Madden case. 1982. Bradford Heights curse strikes again. Every victim had lived in 4B. Every victim had golden hair and green eyes. The wall beside her bed began to bleed. "Figured it out yet, pretty Elizabeth?" Earl's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "They all helped me, just like you're going to help me." She ran to the bathroom and vomited. When she looked up, her reflection showed someone else's cruel smile. Elizabeth wasn't alone in the apartment anymore. She felt them, Earl's previous victims, their spirits trapped in the walls. Sometimes they whispered warnings. Sometimes they screamed. Sometimes they just wept. Catherine, Earl's wife, came to her in dreams. Not the mutilated corpse from the crime photos, but as she was before, young, beautiful, terrified. He gets stronger with each one, Catherine's spirit warned. Each soul he takes, each life he ruins. The building feeds him, holds us here. But he can be stopped. We've been waiting for someone strong enough. Elizabeth woke to find her hands wrapped around her own throat. The final confrontation came on October 13th, the anniversary of the original murders. Earl had been growing stronger, taking control for longer periods. Elizabeth would surface from blackouts to find her kitchen knives arranged in elaborate patterns. Her laptop showed searches for best way to dispose of bodies and how long until someone is declared missing. But she had prepared. Catherine and the others had taught her through dreams and whispered hints. The building itself may have been Earl's hunting ground, but it was also his prison. And on the anniversary, the barriers between the living and the dead grew thin. Elizabeth stood in the center of her apartment, surrounded by a circle of salt and sacred herbs stolen from a local psychic shop. Earl's laughter echoed from the walls. "Gonna stop me, pretty Elizabeth? Gonna fight back?" His voice dropped to a wet growl. "Already in your head. Already under your skin. You're mine now." The cold spot engulfed her. Elizabeth felt him trying to push into her mind, seeping through cracks in her consciousness like toxic smoke. Her mouth opened in his voice. "Time to kill, pretty girl. Time to—" No. Elizabeth grabbed the ancient charm Catherine had shown her in dreams, the one she'd found buried in the basement wall. "My turn, Earl." The apartment exploded into chaos. Shadow figures writhed on the walls, Earl's victims, breaking free. Their screams became a tornado of vengeance, surrounding the dark mass of Earl's spirit as it tried to escape. Elizabeth raised the charm and spoke the words Catherine had taught her. Earl's howl of rage turned to fear. Then silence. They say Bradford Heights is quiet now. The cold spots are gone, the smell of decay just a memory. Elizabeth Mitchell still lives in 4B, though sometimes residents swear they hear her talking to herself late at night. She doesn't tell them about the whispers she still hears. Not Earl's anymore, but the gentle murmurs of those who helped her. Guardians now, not prisoners. And if sometimes in her dreams she sees Earl's face watching from distant shadows, she simply smiles back. After all, he's the one trapped now.